Hello and welcome to Back of the Nest. Today we bring you our first episode of the 2021 season as football attempts to journey to normality through the continued COVID crisis. Pre-season has ended and we'll be soon watching competitive action yet again, in theory anyway. On the show today is me, Chris Hambling. We have Mike Scott and we have Diyar Kernaz. And coming up on the show, we'll be looking into the managerial position heading into the season, reviewing the squad, talking transfers in and out. We'll talk about season tickets, kits, and more events off the pitch. As ever, your contact is extremely important to us, and we've got a selection of questions and comments from you to go through today. We'll give you our predictions for the season ahead for both Palace and in the Premier League in general. And to end the show, we'll have a quick look ahead, giving our opinions on the opening game of the season against Southampton, talking a little bit about lineup and predicted score before the preview guys get into a bit more detail with that one. So in terms of a bit of chat before we get going, gentlemen, good to have you along. Reminder for you at home, you can follow us on all social media. Just search for Back of the Nest and you'll find us on everything. And rate and review on your chosen podcast apps. Those of you watching this is redundant, but we are on video as well from the start of this season, looking resplendent. So the video will come out on YouTube and possibly shared on other formats as well. But it'll be based on our YouTube channel, which Diyar has been running quite successfully, and it hasn't had a break over the summer or anything. He's been jabbering away about transfers every single day, making stuff up as he goes along. Doesn't really care if it's right or wrong. And but do check us out on YouTube as well. But obviously the podcast will go up as normal in audio form as well. And some of you will quite rightly choose not to check out the video content because, I mean, we can never meet your expectations in reality if you've been just listening to us. So look, talking about the video stuff and YouTube and all that kind of stuff, I think we'll talk to Diyar first. Hello, Diyar. First show of the season, but I guess it feels like you haven't been away.
Exactly. I've been here talking about all the transfer rumours that we've been linked with. Loads of them during the summer, so many players. But yeah, it's been a crazy summer. It's been a crazy summer because of the coronavirus, because of Palace's new project with all these young players. So I'm excited by it, but we'll see what happens.
And I think before we move over to Mike, we do have to have a very quick go of what's in Diyar's cupboard. It's a game we first played during another recording session, which it was a part of the show that was never recorded, and there were some surprises in your cupboard, Diyar, weren't there? And I'm going to let you have a rummage around in your cupboard to see what you're going to share this time as I talk to Mike, and we'll come back to you. Obviously, visually, it's more of a visual kind of thing, but so you'll have to check out the video if you want to see what is in Diyar's cupboard. But we will describe it as well. Hello, Mike.
Hello. I mean, any of you that have decided to watch us on video instead of just listen to the audio, I'm not sure what's wrong with you, but fair enough, we're here.
Come on, mate. You know, they can see how bemused you look, how often you're vaping, all those things.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't want to rub it in because I know you've just quit. But
that's why I'm this red.
Yeah, sorry. I'm used to just vaping constantly while I'm doing these things. So apologies.
I've got something if you need it.
Indeed. Okay, so quickly we're back to Diyar for what's in Diyar's cupboard. Diyar, what's in your cupboard this week?
It's probably useless, but I got a weight watcher. A scale.
That's a scale, is what that's called. Scale. It's not called a weight. Yeah. A weight is like what you put on
a weight watcher, but scale, whatever you want to call it. I've got that, so it's not pretty much in use right now because I'm not going gym, but soon, hopefully, it'll be in use.
So, is that something you bought yourself, or is it a family heirloom?
I think it's a family weight scale, whatever it's called.
But probably not an heirloom. I was being a bit sarcastic. Mike, how do you feel about Diyar describing that as a Weight Watcher?
Yeah, I'm not sure about that. So there's a little community centre just near my flat where sort of twice a week these people that are desperate to lose like £1 a month pile in and discuss what salads they've had. So that's what I think of when I think of Weight Watchers.
Yeah, me too. And but there we go, Diyar. Thanks for sharing. It was an enjoyable game of what's in Diyar's cupboard. I know that this is a long-running thing. We're going to see something each week. Eventually, we're going to get to the jackpot. I'm telling you now. But just bear with us on that. Back to you, Mike. during the back of the nest off season, you went on holiday with Clarkey. How was that? Do you remember any of it?
Yeah, we went to Cyprus. We actually got in the day that we were allowed to go in as UK tourists, which was more by luck than judgment. You had to take a test that was less than 3 days old. So we paid for one in London. I mean, the holiday was so cheap, there was no one there. So half the cost was getting a test done. And then we soon found out after that people were just going and getting the NHS ones done if they go on holiday anyway, so we didn't have to pay. But it was good. A lot of beer was consumed. And since then, I've been scaling it down a little bit because I don't want to die before 40.
Yeah, that seems fair. But believe me, 40 is a massive letdown. I swear to God, I've just encountered a whole host of aches and pains that just didn't exist whilst I was still 39. It's like someone's flicked a switch in my knees just to hurt.
I'm not healthy as well. I don't know. I think it's just this year, like with the coronavirus. I'm not saying I've got a corona, but it's just like I've never been like fully fit. Maybe it's because I've stopped going to the gym, but it's just there's something missing. There's something missing in me that just doesn't feel right.
We could talk seriously about it, or we could just sort of smile a little bit about you having something missing and move on. I think we better get into some kind of football chat anyway. So look, we want to talk initially about the fact that so back end of last season, to give it a bit of context, this is why our first topic will be about the managerial position. I think a large proportion of our fan base after Project Restart decided that that was pretty much enough for them. We'd played that badly and struggled for results for that whole period. We'd seen a manager who was unwilling to use the squad, but then bemoaned the fact he didn't have a squad to use. And I think it just all came to a bit of a head. And I think it's fair to say lots and lots and lots of our supporters had enough of Roy. And it's really a check-in with the team, because obviously we now know Roy is going to be taking us into this season. So it's a case of how do we feel about that? And Diyar, that question to you, how are you feeling about Roy?
Well, it's a new season. That's the main positive going into it, because end of last season, you saw what happened. It was just abysmal. The players didn't seem motivated. The same old tactics. It wasn't working. But going into the new season, I just want to start it off with a fresh page in terms of I'm not a massive fan of Roy. I'm not going to lie about that, but I don't want to go into new season saying, oh, I don't want Roy Hodgson at the club. My expectations have changed. My expectations for going into next season now is just to stay up, which is kind of crazy because now we've been in the Premier League for 7 or 8 years, and that's my only expectation. But I know this squad can do better. But with Roy Hodgson as manager, I just don't think we can push on to the next level. So it's weird because, yes, next season is going to be probably his last season. But then again, I would have preferred if we had a new manager. But he's here. What can we do about it? We can't do anything but just now support the guys, and hopefully he proves us all wrong, because end of last season, it was horrible to watch.
And on that, Mike, on being proved wrong, I seem to remember you very much landing in the same place as myself and Diyar by the end of last season in terms of pretty much had your fill of Roy. But, I think Diyar's indicated being a bit more philosophical. I'd say that I feel a little bit the same. So, I mean, where are you on it? And do you feel perhaps it's that opportunity for him to prove us wrong with a few new players as well?
I think football fans can be really quick to forget stuff and forgive. And that's definitely kind of happened for me. I don't know, we're talking about a month and a half. I mean, getting away from Palace for a little bit, going on holiday, had to think about it. And I also just didn't think about Palace for a little bit. Come back, willing to sort of think that things could be all right. The worry is the sort of juxtaposition between, players that we've signed, particularly Eze, and any players that will come in with Roy's old-fashioned, I want these 11 in my team kind of mentality. So as long as he plays the new players, I'll be happy. I mean, I don't have particularly high expectations. It's probably good to not, because it's going to be a tough season. I think it's going to be harder than last season. I think the quality of the Premier League is going to be, the teams that have come up have strengthened, maybe aside from West Brom. I think we're going to have a struggle on our hands, and I'll be happy enough finishing. Well, I'd be very happy if we finish where we did last season.
Yeah, I think that's and again, I suppose in a way it's easy to kind of say that at the start of the year. I do feel that people will be very quick to turn again if the results at the start of the season are poor. I've had a look at our first few fixtures, and I'll be honest, I've got a bit of fear in that at the moment. I don't see. It's hard to judge other teams, I guess, but we haven't had that long of a break. We haven't made that many changes. A lot of hope at the moment being put on Eze. It doesn't look like Ferguson's going to be fit for quite some time. So, we're not really made a difference there. And it's really about the business that Palace do from now that would have to bring more confidence. Because right now I feel, we're probably 1 or 2 injuries away from complete disaster. And I suppose going into that, it's about what we learned from pre-season. Diyar's already mentioned in terms of it's probably Roy's last season. I think it's a transitional year again. And I hate that word because we've used it several times in the Premier League. Pardew talked about transition. We've talked about transition to a different style with Frank de Boer. And both of those things have ended up being disasters. But I think we're back in that place now. We all know we've got an old squad. And looking at pre-season, obviously 2-1 win against Oxford. We beat Charlton. Was it 3-0, Charlton? 4?
We beat them. I can't remember. But yeah, it was
hard to remember. And then
exactly.
Millwall was 3-0. And then obviously Bromby was 1-1. And so what do you feel we've learnt, Diyar? Looking at Roy's, you talk about his change in tactics perhaps and how he's using players. What do you feel you've learnt?
So we're undefeated and that Champions League football will be coming. No, apart from that, one thing that we've learned is that potentially next season we could go back to how we was playing when we had Ruben Loftus-Cheek in terms of 4-4-2 and Eze out wide. So I personally think that Wilfried Zaha was another positive out of this because last season we saw it so many times where we went into the games and Wilfried Zaha was more focused defensively rather than going forward, and he didn't have that creative freedom. And we saw that in pre-season. He scored goals. He scored 3 out of 4 games, and he looked a threat going forward. Another thing in pre-season that was a positive with Jaiber Riedewald. I think he's proved time and time again that he deserves to be a starter. So if Roy doesn't start him now, honestly, I don't have a clue when he will start. If he will ever start for Palace under Roy Hodgson, because he's playing fantastic football. So a couple of things that we've learned in pre-season is looking positive, but then again, it's only pre-season. You don't want it to get carried away. I think Mike has said it in a couple of our watch-alongs where we beat Bristol City last season in pre-season 5-0. Was it 5-0 or 4-3, something like that? But then again, in the season, that doesn't reflect. It depends on what you actually do in the season, not what you do in pre-season. But there has been positives, I'll admit that.
About yourself, Mike, what have you learnt from pre-season? What are your hopes and dreams and fears?
Well, let's temper it by the fact that there was one season where Jordan March looked like a world beater in pre-season. So let's remember that. I was a bit worried about how open we were against Bromby. As you say, it probably fairly meaningless. And you definitely noticed that Hodgson looked livid. It was good to see that as they came straight in. Obviously only played a half, but that was good. The signs are that he might embrace a slight change of style. I would worry if there was too much change. But yeah, it feels like the seeds of change came across in those 4 games. So that's a good thing. But it's not, like you say, it's not going to take long for people to lose their patience with Hodgson if he reverts back to type. So I'm not sure that I should get too excited. And obviously it was a very short, four games isn't much at all. Hard to tell too much, isn't it?
Can I just check in there? You said the seeds of change. Isn't it the seeds of love? And it's the winds of change, surely.
Oh, is it? Okay.
I'm just going by song lyrics.
Who is it that did that? I mean, I think we need Nick here right now for.
We do. Sowing the seeds of love. Okay. Was by someone. I mean, Sam's in the background. She might be able to tell us. But yeah,
people will be shouting at their podcast apps right now. Sorry to everyone for being heathens.
Yeah. Actually, genuinely, one of the things that I hate massively is when people on podcasts talk about things that I don't quite remember. I've done it, and I mean, Mike's apologetic. I'm less so, to be honest with you. Just think you just got to deal with it. But just a couple of thoughts from me on pre-season before we move on to our next topic. I think tactically, going back to the 4-4-2 and having those wide players being acting more as sort of wide midfielders who are tucking in central. I think it worked really, really well in the Oxford game with Eberechi Eze. Just to stop, Sam's quite right. Winds of Change was obviously by Scorpion. We all knew that, didn't we? So
I don't
Spotify
know what you
that
guys
later,
are talking
Diyar.
about, but yes, exactly.
But sowing the seeds of love, we're still waiting on. But no, joking aside, it those wide positions, I don't think it really suits Townsend. But here's the fears question mark. You've got access to Google, Sam. Anyway, but Townsend, I don't think suits that.
Tears
well,
for Fears. Sorry.
But was it Tears for Fears?
Amazing still of the video where they look like the cheesiest pair of bastards I've ever seen in my life. Carry on.
It's my own fault. I started that. I can't be angry that it's interrupted what I'm trying to talk about. To reset a little bit, I'm behind the tactical change, but if we look at it was so exciting for the first game. The game against Oxford, it looked like it was a really promising change, that the players were straight away comfortable with it. Against Charlton and against Millwall, despite the fact that they're lower, lesser opposition, as we know.
Yeah, exactly. There is that to consider as well, because all the teams that we face, Oxford United, Charlton, Millwall, yes, it's great that we finished the season unbeaten, but let's be realistic. Charlton are basically on the verge of not being a club. They're a mess. There's Millwall there. There's Oxford United. I think Brøndby was the most challenging game, and we couldn't beat them. So
and that's where I was going, Diyar, in the sense that that's the first time in pre-season that it showed what the potential downside of this tactical shift is. We were talking about it a lot on the watch along. Initially we were concerned it was because of Tyrick Mitchell, but then it started happening to Joel Ward on the other flank as well. Having those wide midfielders tuck in all the time, and to be, in particular, to be less focused on defence, like whether it was Schlupp or whether it was Wilf playing out on the left and with Townsend out on the right. They just left the fullback exposed, and it was very easy to pass around them or to sort of kick and run past them. Mitchell struggled a little bit with his positioning. Ward was struggling a little bit with the fact that he was tucking in narrow all the time. We left so much width that it was just cross after cross after cross after cross, and it was no surprise when we conceded from a cross either, was it? So that would be the part of pre-season that just flagged up a little bit of a concern. The massive confidence that winning brings. I was very happy with that, but there was definitely there's always going to be a trade-off. If you shift to a more attacking style, which it looks like we're trying to do, then obviously there is a trade-off defensively. And I just have this fear that about 10 games in, we're going to be 2 points bottom of the league, and Roy's going to say, "I told you so." That's why we go back to my same system. That's why I was doing what I was doing, and yeah, that's my fear.
Yeah, but if that's the case, then it's so on Roy Hodgson, because it's not a told you so case. He's a manager of a football club in the Premier League where he should be able to balance attack and defence. Yes, he was great in defence last season, but going forward, 31 goals in 38 games, I don't care how good you are defensively. That's just unacceptable. You're averaging less than 1 goal a game. It's not even on an entertainment basis. It's just on a football basis. It's just watching that team play. We had nothing going forward, and it's all down to tactics. Let's be honest, because Wilfried Zaha, I think he's had one of his worst seasons in terms of watching him play, where he just couldn't do much. And I haven't seen Wilf like that. He's been progressing well season after season. So what is that down to? I think it's tactics. So it's on Roy Hodgson. He can't use that I told you so excuse, because he has to make sure that he balances out. I feel like we've got good enough players, especially with Ferguson coming into the side, that he shouldn't have anything to worry about.
I mean, from a pragmatic point of view, if we're 2 points after 10 games, Hodgson's going to be out of a job. But more importantly, you said we've got a hard start, which is absolutely true. And I think it just gives us a bit more chance to recover. If he does have a Holloway-esque start to the season and he goes, at least maybe we've got some games to try and claw it back and stay up. That's the real cynic in me.
Yeah, I
don't see him going. I reckon he's here till Christmas at minimum if it's a complete disaster. But if we look like we've got any chance of staying up at all, which I hope we have, I just don't see him going till the end of the year.
Yeah, I was with you as well in terms of until at least Christmas he'll be at the club. But even after Christmas, unless, as you said, we pick up 5 points in like 10 games or 15 games, I just don't see him going at all, because we've seen it with the ball. They clearly want us to stay up. They surely don't believe that Roy Hodgson can bring us to the next level, because that's the reason they haven't sacked him. He's due to keep us up. So if there's a sense that even if we go in a bad run of form, if there's a sense that Palace can stay up under Roy Hodgson, he's staying unless it's disastrous. I just don't see him leaving. And if he was to leave, then they would have sacked him end of last season.
Okay, well, it's time for us to move on from Roy. I dare say a subject we'll return to throughout the course of the season, and let's hope it's for all the right reasons rather than our fears coming true. So topic 2 is to talk a little bit about the squad. So those of you that have been following us for a while will know that every now and then I like to apply my managerial techniques from work to Palace, and I've done my red, amber and green again with our squad. Last time I did it in terms of contracts and age and things like that. This time it's about their usefulness to the squad. Now, in the future, we'll probably be presenting these anything like this that we're referring to in video format. I'm not going to risk it, Diyar. It does say share screen at the bottom of my screen, but I'm not prepared.
Exactly.
So
don't do it.
I'm just going to talk us through it. The guys have got access to it if they happen to want to read it, but they could just react to what we're talking about as well. So, you know, I split into goalkeepers, defenders, midfielders and forwards, and obviously there's some crossover between players there. The reason for doing this is just to look at the current squad before any of the 2 confirmed transfers in Eberechi Eze and Nathan Ferguson. But to the current squad, the one that's been performing in pre-season, what depth do we have? You know, where are we weak, and where do our fears sort of come in? So if we look at the goalkeepers first and foremost, and it's a little bit of an explanation. If I called them green, that means they're fit, ready, and able. If I've called them amber, it means they're injury prone or unreliable, or a developing player or an unproven player. If I've made them red, it means they're shit or emergency only. And I might not necessarily specify which of those 2 options I think they are. I'll just call them red. So the goalkeepers, and we've talked about this, and I got a bit of flack for one of my colorings here. So Guaita's green. We all know Guaita's green, right, gents? I mean,
yeah, he's the brightest green there is. Yeah,
so no worries there. Henderson, I've gone with a red because he just hasn't played barely any football at all. He seems to be more of a support for the goalkeeping coach.
He seems to love that, doesn't he? He seems to love doing absolutely no football.
He's our youngest goalkeeper as well.
Is he?
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Yes.
But he's still, he's about a year younger than Guaita, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's like 32 or 30. I don't know, something like that. 30. Well, I'm pretty sure he's the youngest.
Yeah, no, I think you're right in that. Yeah, because hadn't thought about that before. But he played in the under 23s today. Was all right. But you know, let's face it, he's not a Premier League goalkeeper. He's not pushing for the number 1 spot. So he's red in my view. If we were in a position where Henderson is our only available goalkeeper, then we're in trouble. So that's why he's red. But Wayne Hennessy, I went with orange, and you guys felt I was being generous there.
Yes. 100%.
Yeah, I mean, if there's a choice of the 2 of them, select Henderson, because at least he's an unknown quantity. I know Hennessy's just overtaken Neville Southall's clean sheet record for Wales, and he's over the moon and stuff like that. But come on now. Come on.
He shouldn't be at the club. I've said this years ago. He shouldn't be at the club, because it's not because I don't like the man. I mean, some of the abuse he gets, he doesn't deserve it because it's too personal. But it's never going to work out. It's never going to work out. Even when he was playing good and I was backing him, fans were still going against him. When he's playing bad, of course, that's around 80% of the time. He's pretty useless. The only reason why I think he's still at the club is because of his wages. It must be team friendly. But other than that, I wouldn't have Wayne Hennessy at the club, because it's just not a. It's not a good player to have around, especially with the fan base going against him.
I think on paper, having an international keeper as your backup goalkeeper is probably good. By all accounts, he's a popular member of the team. I say team squad. He's a popular member of the squad at the training ground, well liked. But I mean, I've got 2 problems. The first is I don't think he's good enough for the Premier League, and I have genuine fear when he is our goalkeeper. And I think obviously the whole incident in the restaurant with the Nazi salute left a bad taste in the mouth as well. His explanation, it's not for me to say otherwise. That's what he said was the case, that he was trying to get someone's attention. But it feels like to me it was a very, very stupid and ignorant thing to do. And I suppose in many ways it sums up what I think of him. I don't think he's particularly sharp or bright either off the pitch or on it. And I think the biggest difference between a goalkeeper like him and a goalkeeper like Guaita, to me, is their readiness on the pitch. When you watch Guaita as the opposition have possession of the ball and are approaching our goal, he's on his toes, he's crouched, he's ready. Wayne just sort of seems to move like a crab across his goal line. Like I don't really understand it. Anyway, go on.
And also, we don't have confidence, and I don't think the backline has confidence when he plays as well. And you can see it. It just seems totally different when Wayne Hennessy plays.
All right, so I'm going to quickly go through in terms of defenders. So we've got 12 plus 2 that can play in defence as well. One in particular who has been doing that all pre-season in Kouyaté. So, excuse me. So I'll read them all out. I'll read out my greens first and just let me know if either of you disagree with any of that. My greens are Joel Ward, Patrick Van Arnholt, Scott Dan, Martin Kelly, Jairo Riedewald, and Sheikh Kouyaté. We happy with those?
Yeah, that sounds good with me.
I mean, if it was Roy, he'd probably add MacArthur to that list, but
yeah, MacArthur's green everywhere. Yeah.
So I'm going to go for my Reds next, and I know you picked out one of these in particular, Mike, when we started discussing it previously. I want to see if you're still going to hold that opinion because of the under-23 game today I want to talk about. But two I've picked out as Reds, as in, and the options, remember, for Red are shit or emergency only. I'm not saying which of these they are. So we've got Yaroslav Yak, and we've got Ryan Innes as my defenders who are Reds. Any issues with that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to temper this by saying I couldn't get out of work to watch the Brentford B game. So if Ryan Innes was absolutely shocking, fair enough. But I guess because he's come through and stuff, and I want to give him more chances than maybe most. I'd probably put him in the orange category because I would like to see him get some game time, maybe in the Carabao Cup. Yaroslav Yak obviously got to be green as well. I mean, that's the most exciting news of the off-season is to see him back. Absolutely over the moon about that.
I think interestingly, so both of them played today in the under-23s, today at the time of recording, by the way. So that I'll go with Yak first. Yak's been playing left back.
Okay.
Yaroslav Yak at left back has been. That's where he's been. Sorry, Diyar, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, it doesn't feel right. It just doesn't feel right.
It doesn't look right either, mate.
It doesn't look right because he's just too big to be a left back, if that makes sense. Like with left backs nowadays, you see them going and attacking and defending. If Yak is running forward, that is going to look crazy because he just doesn't look like the type of player. He looks more like a centre back. But I'm not too sure about that one.
He's an interesting physical stature, isn't he? Because he's quite tall, but not like we've got taller players. Like Ryan Innes, I think is 6'5", 6'5" and a bit. Maybe he's taller than Yak. And we've probably got players with stronger physiques as well, but I don't know. He just seems to be proportionally quite an interesting shape, I guess. But in terms of the footballing ability, I'm quite surprised because he was comfortable at left back. Now he wasn't attacking, and when you turn him around when he's running back at his own goal, he looks like he doesn't look like a professional footballer, but under no pressure. He looked okay. So that's the best I can say about him. But to me, he's a write-off. Going back to the Ryan Innes thing, I totally get where you're coming from, Mike, because as I think, we interviewed Ryan Innes when he was still 15, I think, and he was being sort of chased by Man City. He was rated hugely, and he had all sorts of talent. And for a variety of reasons, he's struggled to really play first-team football. It's only really of late that he's gone out and got some proper loan games elsewhere, but seems to have been kind of followed around by different incidents, which has been a real shame. And I would love him to succeed, but when you realise he's 24 coming on 25, you start to realise just how long as a club we've been kind of hoping we'll get something. And realistically, the only reason he's still about is because he is good enough to have a league career, and there might be someone out there willing to pay a bit of money for him because fantastic size for a defender. And going back to the specifics of today, for 70 of the, I was going to call it a percentage because I can't remember if he went off or not. I think he went off towards the end. But for 70% of the game, he looked perfectly capable of playing Premier League football. But for the other 30% of the game, for the other 30% of the game, he looked like he'd never seen a football before. And I'm not trying to be glib about that. It's just the concentration levels, the focus. Before Brentford scored, he gave them the perfect opportunity just because he was unable to trap a football. He put his foot out, he bounced off his foot straight to the defender. He seems to struggle on the turn at times. He seems to struggle with people with pace, but just not all the time. It's the strangest thing to watch because when he's focused and confident in the game, he's a real unit. His defending is great. He's got great physical position. He knows where to hold the defender on the blind side of the ref, the attacker on the blind side of the ref. He knows how to clear a ball. But it just seems to be some psychological thing where he'll just have that slip. And it's in every game I've ever seen him play. It's not ever seen him play. Every game I've seen him play in recent times, that's been a feature of his game.
Yeah, that's a shame. I kind of wish I'd seen the game now. Just going to go to a bit of content. We asked some people some comments ahead of this podcast, and John asked, what the deal is with Benteke, Cahill, Tompkins, and Sacco. Colcraster replied, "Is that actually your name, Cole? If it is, excellent. Injuries with them, Cahill hamstring, Benteke broken foot, Sacco and Tompkins can't remember. But so when you've listed players here, you've listed them in orange for the most part, and we do have to talk about the fact that injuries in the back are going to be a huge problem. So we might have to end up.
And that happens with an aging squad. These are expected because, yes, when we talk about aging squad, they don't have much value as a player. But as you get older, the more games you play, the more likely you are to be injured if you're older players. So with Cahill, Scott Dan, James Tompkins, and Sacco, these players are risky. If they play, they're good. They're good enough for the Premier League. Cahill was our leader next season, but going into next season, hopefully they don't get injury prone, because that's when you talk about trouble. Because Checo Chiata is going to start centre back. He doesn't look bad there, but it's still worrying.
Yes, it is. Yeah, and as Mike said, I agree with Tompkins, Sacco, and Cahill. I think interestingly, I put Dan as green because he's actually stayed fit, hasn't he? Technically speaking, he feels like an injury risk. He was out for so long, and he's 33, possibly coming on 34 now. So you're kind of going into next season, you'd feel potentially as an injury risk there. But he stayed fit for a while, so he gets to go green. But yeah, Tompkins, we just don't know, do we? He seems to be constantly injured in some form or another. They seem to be quite serious injuries when he gets them. I think the last one was it ankle? I think he took a heavy challenge or something like that. I can't quite remember, but Cahill, 34, 35 next birthday, was a very nasty injury. But he was fit for most of the season. But let's not forget the season before was struggling to get into the Chelsea side, had a history of injuries, and again with age it does catch up, unfortunately. So centre backs looking quite light at the moment, which is obviously why Palace are in the market trying to get a younger centre back in.
And that's nuts when you list those names. But yeah, with your lovely managerial WAG system you got here, the ones you've got in green, essentially is Dan and Kelly. So back on the two players that you absolutely would have had as backup at the start of last season. So when I wasn't worried before this discussion, I now am. So thanks, Amber.
Yeah, sorry about that. In the fullback area, so I've got Mitchell down as Amber as well. That's purely just because of inexperience. I think we could all, hopefully, we all agree that there's a good player there. We've seen defensively him to do some really impressive things in pre-season. One tackle in particular that was very reminiscent of a Wan-Bissaka challenge, sort of coming out of nowhere to whip the ball away with a sliding tackle at the last. And he looks, when he does get the opportunity to go forward, he looks very confident and knows what he's doing. There's just that little bit of inexperience there. So we have to say Amber, because there's a chance in certain games that form's going to drop up and down, mistakes are going to be made, and he might get exposed, particularly if there's not cover ahead of him. But it looks like he'd be starting the season for us at left back, even though PVA's back in light training, I believe. But are we comfortable with Mitchell?
Well, this is his time. Mitchell, just like Aaron Wan-Bissaka when we had injuries, he just had to come in. He settled straight away in. I'm not saying that everyone has to be Aaron Wan-Bissaka, but Mitchell's had a good run of games now in pre-season, so he should be ready for the new season. And hopefully he takes his chance, because I don't think he's going to get a better one than this. Last season was talking about him not playing games, but this is it, Mitchell. You've got your chance, so it's up to you to really take it. And whether he performs consistently, I'm not too sure. Only time will tell. But Patrick Van Aanholt is back in training, so he's not going to have much longer time at that left-back position. So it's really up to him to perform against Southampton and prove to Roy that he can be a starter left-back ahead of Van Aanholt.
Nah, Hodgson's going to put James McArthur left-back if he goes out.
I mean, obviously, Gyro's an option there as well. You know, a pretty serious option. So we'll see. We'll see. That first game could be very, very interesting. In the interest of time, let's get straight onto midfield players. There's actually fewer players here than I thought, and particularly when you start to look at the wide midfield players, whether you consider them a forward and a midfielder. So we've actually got a bit of crossover here. So I've suggested that there are 8 midfielders plus 4 that can play further up and contribute elsewhere. So I've gone with Greens, and let's see if there's any arguments on the Greens. So Green being players that are fit, ready, and able. So Luka Milivojevic, obviously match fitness needs sorting out, but you know he's there. Max Meyer is in there. Jake Kouyaté is in there. James McArthur's in there. James McCarthy is in there. I mean, that's generous. And Jairo Riedewald's in there because of, in particular, being used in midfield in pre-season. And then, arguably, in the wide midfield positions, you can look at Wilf, Andros, and Eze, as well as Jeff Schlupp. And obviously, Jeff can also play central as well. But of those I've selected, Schlupp, Wilf, and Andros, I've gone with Greens. Are we happy with the Greens?
Yeah, sounds fine.
I think the only potential...
Sorry, a bit of listener comment on MacArthur being a Green. Christian said, is it time to drop Maka? 32 years old, would be a very useful bench option. And then, I can't pronounce your name, sorry. Bella bit me. I can answer that, and it's a big yes. He's nearly 33, and it's time to move on. We can't complain about the lack of goals and creativity with this guy these days. Contributes to the poor stats when he plays nearly every game. So, certainly the listener suggesting that maybe he should be at Orange.
I think he is a little underappreciated, and at times by me, he's a little underappreciated. I sometimes forget how good he actually is. It was the Bromby game where he did some ludicrous turn, wasn't it, in his own penalty area?
Yeah, he out-Sacco'd Sacco with a sort of...
Yeah. But, yeah, I do think he's a better player than he gets credit. But undoubtedly, you know, to be in that midfield playing the role he's playing, undoubtedly we need to be looking for a replacement. And this is probably the season where we should see him phase out. But I think he's still got a big contribution to make. But yeah, I'd agree with that. We're probably getting into his final full season, I think, as a first choice.
I think it depends on what formation we play. If we play 4-4-2 and have 2 central midfielders, does James McArthur fit in there? I think Gyro's a starter. He has to start there. But next to Gyro, do you put Luka, do you put McArthur, or do you put McCarthy? But that depends on Roy. He's elected to go with that formation in pre-season. But if he does that in the actual season against Southampton next game, then where does McArthur really fit in?
McCarthy was absolute toilet in the 23s today, I have to say. Let's just hope it's a fitness thing, but it didn't look like he tried in any way. Looked well off the pace, but yeah, I'm not a massive fan of his. I like his attitude, but attitude doesn't get you anywhere. You know, we need footballers. I agree with you, Diyar. I'd like to see Gyro and Luka start as 2 central midfielders in a 4-4-2. I suspect we'll see Maka and MacArthur, to be precise, and Luka initially. But we'll see. Luka's got to get himself fit first, so that first game is going to be very, very interesting when we see the team sheet. So we can get straight into the doubts. So I sort of almost want to take this back, and it's only there because he's never played at Premier League level, and that's Eberechi Eze as an unproven in amber. But I think we liked what we saw for 45 minutes, didn't we? And I think that'll be very green very quickly.
You're playing with fire there. You put him as amber. He's the greenest player there. He's hydrogen to me. green energy. He's going to provide.
Hang on, I'm going to stop you there. Stop you. It depends on the source of the hydrogen. If you have to get it through extraction from natural gas, it still produces carbon dioxide. Diyar, come on, everyone knows that.
No, I know, but once you have the electrolyzers there and you produce it via water, then you know.
It's above, mate. I got a C at foundation science. I'm lost.
I'm impressed. He's right, but I work in the energy.
No, because I invested in hydrogen companies, so I've looked into it. Yeah.
Have you seen that? Have you seen the trial runs they're doing in the northwest of England and about the caves to store the CO2?
No, but let's go back to Eze.
All right. We'll talk about football then. Fine.
Yeah. He's a green player. That's what I'm trying to say. He's going to be our energy spark in midfield. So I wouldn't make him man. But I think even though he's played 45 minutes, I think he's going to be available. It doesn't seem like he's had any injury crisis before at QPR, so he should be fit relatively. I know he had that little injury at the Charlton game, but Eze is a green for me. I'll have to disagree with you there.
All right, so Eze is a ground source heat pump. I get what you're saying. Mike, your feelings, have I gone over, or do you feel that there's worth a little bit of, not reticence, I suppose, but let's be a little bit conservative, not overhype Eze before he gets the opportunity to settle into the team at first team level?
No, I think not for the amount that he's cost. I mean, is he now the third highest ever signing? I mean, he's going to have to deliver, but I'm sure he will. So I'd make him green unless we find out that he's injured quite often. But he's played a decent amount of games for QPR. There's no reason to think that. So he's the reason we're excited, if we're excited at all about next season. So.
Okay. Well, look, I didn't have any reds in the midfield. I did have two ambers, and they were basically just two youth players. You got Malachi Boateng, who's unlikely to feature, I think, in the first team, might scrape an appearance in the Carabao Cup or something like that. Or if we get a lesser team, maybe in the FA Cup, you might see him feature. Decent player, little brother of Hiram Boateng, who obviously came through our academy and did pretty well. Got a good career for himself. But Nia Kirby have also gone with amber, and both of those, because I don't feel we can call them red. We certainly can't say that they're emergency only, even though I think that's how Roy would use them. But I would say they're obviously they're players that are in development and they're unproven, which is why I went for the amber. So Kirby's probably the one that we should be looking to kick on at some point. But realistically, I think probably that's got to be in the form of another loan. Would you say?
Hopefully,
either of you.
Exactly.
Hopefully.
well, you hope so. Because he's what? How old is he now? He should be around.
It's been 19 coming on 20. Yeah,
19, 20. So he needs to be playing first team football. I don't think maybe with the Category 1 football, academy football might benefit him, but overall he should be playing first team out somewhere. And it's not only Kirby. I think other players as well. I think we need to focus on making sure these youngsters go out there and actually get first team football experience, which we didn't see last time. And a couple of players from the academy actually complained publicly and said that they were disappointed because you can only do so much with under 23s football.
But I mean, I don't think he pulled up trees at Blackpool, did he, Kirby? So.
He got better as the season went on, reading their comments on their forums and stuff, like I do because I'm tragic like that. But they warmed to him, especially when he started contributing, in the attacking side of the pitch. But yeah, I mean, he played today, and he was playing. Interestingly, he was playing wide right of the four rather than as a central midfielder, with Max Meyer playing wide left of the four. And it was only when Meyer went off the pitch and Kirby got a little bit more of the ball. That you can see that there's a decent player in there, but he's not really going to be pushing for a first team spot. I can't see who he's going to displace or what he's going to do it, because he's not that type of player. He's not a player with a burst of pace or an immense amount of skill out of nowhere. He's not an eye-catching player, but he's a steady player with a lot of technical ability. So he just needs game time. He's just got to develop, and I still think there's a potential future for him at Palace if he can do that, but it's got to be out on loan. So let's quickly round up talking about the forwards. So in forwards, I've got Jeffrey Schlupp because he's been playing up front for the course of pre-season. Wilfried Zaha, the same, has been playing up front in the 4-4-2. Andros Townsend, I guess has been playing more midfield than up front, but he is an attacking player. And obviously Eberechi Eze, we mentioned already. As I mentioned before, Wilf and Andros and Jeffrey Schlupp I've gone green for. Andros was borderline, though, I have to say, but we will trust him. That's the reason he's green. But form-wise, he's got a bit of work to do, if we're being brutally honest. Ayew is a green. Clearly, I just didn't want to get any rage from Mike in particular, but our player of the season, goal machine. Can't really argue with Jordan Ayew being a green. But what we have in terms of reds, we have Christian Benteke. Obviously, terrible scoring run for 3 seasons now. Regular injuries and yet another injury at the moment as well. The trust has gone completely. Even though there was a lot of talk at the back end of last season about him improving the team when he plays, and I think perhaps since I wrote this, we've obviously now been linked seriously with some strikers. So you'd suggest that Benteke will end up being perhaps an emergency only option. But any comments on that from either of you?
His role has changed. He's a striker that we don't expect to score goals, but his role is not useless as well, because he has helped the likes of Wilf in the last couple of games, especially last season. We saw when he got sent off and when he got injured in the same game, we missed him. We missed Benteke. He doesn't score goals like he did back in the day, but he still has a positive contribution in different ways. So, but yeah, it's a weird one. He's a striker that we don't expect to score goals, which doesn't sound right.
Do you see it being any different if he was to play at a 4-4-2, Mike? If he's up there with Ayew, he's up there with Wilf?
I was just about to say, I think he's more redundant in a 4-4-2, isn't he? You'd hope that there'd be quicker breaks with ball feet down the flanks, and maybe if balls are going to come in, he might be able to header them, but you wouldn't back him to score, would you? Apart from anything else, he seems like one of those players, a lot like Wickham, where when they're injured, they have to be 100% fit before they're that willing to go out on the pitch and put 100% in. There's players all through, Daniel Sturridge or Darren Anderson back in the day, they're the classic example, but people that just take that bit longer to recover. So I think you have to put him as a bonus if he does anything, because, with a broken foot, you can't see him playing anytime soon. So right now, it's pretty irrelevant how he's going to fit into a structure.
In the interest of time, Wickham is a write-off. I don't think there's any need to discuss that. He's not featured. I think he's injured again at the moment, unsurprisingly. But even when he was fit and in training, he didn't feature in any under-23 squads or any first-team squads at all in the whole of pre-season. The guy's unfortunately a complete write-off. And I just think people are just hoping to get some money off him.
I just want to use the one quote, I can't remember who said it last season, but one of the listeners just referred to him as old breadstick legs, and it still makes me laugh.
Yeah, it is. It's impressive. It's up there with the whole crisp packet hands / Kit Kat fingers for Hennessy. But and I've got Amber for Pierrick and J.K. Gordon. Interestingly, both of those played up front today for the under-23s, and I would call that a bad experiment. Pierre, they both had. It's like if you imagine playing Wilf and Townsend up front when it worked. It was like if you remember the games where it didn't work, it just felt like that. Neither could hold the ball up particularly well. They were being clattered by the defenders every time it came up to them. There were moments where they looked like they were going to get in behind. There were moments where they pulled wide and did some good work. I just don't think it got the best out of either. But anyway, I'm digressing just because they were both in forwards and they're both playing up front today. But I think again, Pierrick is much talked about. Did have a good impact, has played Premier League football, so I think he's much more likely to get a look in than anybody else. But he still needs an awful lot of development, in my view. And I'm excited about John Caminho Gordon. He's he's only 17, I think, not long 17. He's good size for a young lad and great movement up top. And certainly he's got skill. He knows how to draw a foul as well. Just needs a little bit more coaching just to see if he can do anything. He spent quite a lot of time on the deck in the under-23 game today, not because he was fouled necessarily, but when you got a defender and an attacker going for the ball, and the defender just nicks it away from you. his reaction to that often was to kind of just drop to his knees. And I know that you do that when you don't want to run. That was my tactic. I didn't want to run and chase the defender down, so I'd have a little fall down. And sometimes it's a bit of an instinctive thing when you play football. Hoping you guys know what I mean. And I just think he needs to get that out of his system, because if you just stay on your feet, it doesn't matter that the defender got there first. You've got an opportunity to put a bit of pressure on. And if he did a bit more of that, I think he would have had more of an impact in the game. But he looks a real talent. Quite impressed.
Yeah, I want to see how he does in Cat 1 football, because he's been the one that I'm looking forward to, one for the future out of everyone in the academy, because in the FA Youth Cup game, there were people saying how he played very good in terms of up front, also scoring goals. So hopefully he lives up to the hype. But as you said, he will still learn. He's only 17 years old. He still has lots of time to develop. But this Cat 1 football is going to be an experiment, and it's going to be harsh on lots of these players. We're going to find out who can actually make it in the Premier League and who can't, because they're going to be facing one of the best oppositions in youth football in England.
Yeah, for sure. All right, look, let's steam into a little bit about transfers and move this on as quickly as we can. We knew we were going to go over our targeted hour, because we knew this would be difficult to preview a whole season in an hour, but we'll try and keep it as sharp as we can. In terms of the full range of transfer rumours, both in and out, Diyar's been covering them on basically daily YouTube videos, haven't you, Diyar? So check out our YouTube channel, subscribe on there. We're over 800 now. Really, really impressive. I think it wasn't that long ago. It was only a few months back. We're on a couple of hundred or something at most. Yeah, I started properly during the pandemic. And I was like, let's go for it. Let's talk about Palace. And then, it's growing quite rapidly. I think it was only around 200, 300. But now, we're on 800. Thank you. Yeah, growing all the time. Great interaction on there as well. And, it's been really, really good. So if you want full details on all the different rumours, however likely they are or whatever, DR covers everything. And takes you through that. So check out our YouTube page. However, it's channel. I've said page like an old man. It's YouTube channel. It's fine. It's fine. Yeah, fire up the dial up and get onto the YouTubes. So let's talk. I mean, just a couple of young players that weren't mentioned above there. I just want to do a quick nod to. So one was Scott Banks, who obviously we signed from Alloa or someone, wasn't it? I forget. Yeah, in Scotland. Dundee United, wasn't it?
I think it was Dundee United.
Yeah. Went on loan to it was either Alloa or Airdrie. Went on loan to. But anyway, he a very, very, very promising young player. I saw a little bit of him play in early pre-season. Looked on some weird Facebook stream game. I think it was the Tonbridge Angels game. But he looked very, very good on the ball, very confident, and there's some good clips out of him scoring some nice goals. But from what I understand, he'll be training with the first team for the first half of the season. They'll try and find him a loan in the second half of the season, just to continue that development from basically bringing him into professional football. I think technically it's a semi-pro level at times where he's been at, and just getting that training up to standard and playing with better players really. But he looks a real find. Luke Dreyer is one that's been, I think he must be nearly 22 now, if not 22 already. I mentioned this previously to DR in a WhatsApp conversation. You know, when he started to break through, he was one that I looked at and just thought, that guy can play Premier League. He's got 3 or 4 extra yards in his head. He can pick a pass, confident on the ball, seems happy on either foot. What a brilliant possibility we've got there. Been ruined by injury, have no idea where he is now. I haven't seen him play in any games for a while. I think he was possibly named in a couple of lineups of games that weren't necessarily watchable. But my fear is he might be injured again because he didn't feature at all off the bench or in the first team today. And I'm just a little bit gutted for him, so I wanted to make mention of that. But let's talk about the key rumoured ins and outs, if we can. And at the time of recording, the biggest rumour in is Michy Batshuayi. I've been responsible for sort of rubbishing the very idea of it, but it seems like things have changed. Ryan Fraser's gone to Newcastle. He was one on our list for quite a while by all accounts. So it looks like our approach has changed into what we're looking at in the market. So first of all, reaction. I don't know who wants to go first, but it's looking very positive for us signing Michy. Go on, Diyar.
I was waiting for Mike, and Mike was waiting for me. With Michy, I'm looking out there for options, and there isn't any real options out there in terms of strikers. Who else can we get? It seemed like Watkins is going to Villa. We was linked with Evan Nelson, who's going to Porto. Who else was linked with? Was linked with different strikers, but it seems like Michi is the only realistic option right now, and I don't mind it because he knows Roy Hodgson, and Roy Hodgson knows him. He knows his system. He had a great presence on social media with the fans. It seemed like he loved his time at Palace, and also in training with the players. You can see it in the videos. It seemed like he's a good guy to have in the change room, and hopefully that's all I require from Michi is for him to score goals. It sounds so simple, so Michael Owen-esque, but anything else, I'm not really that fussed. He's comfortable on the ball. And if he can score goals, whether that is 5, whether that is 6 or 7, I'll be happy because Jordan Ayew can't do it all by himself next season.
Personally, I'm of the opinion I don't like loans particularly unless they're of certain benefit, for desperation. And I'm not sure. I think if we're going to play the 4-4-2, we can have some false nines. I'm not sure we especially need him. And if it's going to tank the Gallagher loan, then that's much more irritating. I think we'll get by with what we've got, personally. But if he comes, it's a bonus, as long as Paris doesn't come out and moan about wages and that kind of thing. I'm sure he won't. It'll be a nice bonus, but I'm not getting too excited.
I mean, I share a little bit of that concern. I talked about it on some of our watch-alongs, really. I don't know. It's the sort of thing where I suppose probably my attitude might change based on whether or not he signs or not, and it looks likely. The concern over the loan, if what's being reported is true and it's a loan with an option to buy, great. I'm not sure how that works because I thought he was out of contract next summer, so there'd presumably have to be some kind of new contract prior to the loan or something like that. I don't know. Be a weird one. So it sounds like there's some messing about to do in the deal there.
So the report suggests that he's going to sign a contract extension at Chelsea before he joins Palace because it seems like they want to get a bit more in terms of value if he does perform. So it is a bit confusing, but it seems like he's still going to be under contract for another year, so we won't be able to get him for free.
See, that really annoys me. Like that's really annoying. That makes me even less keen, to be honest. I really like him as a striker. I think of the game they're in the Champions League. I think they're against Atletico, and he scored a goal that sorted them out. He comes up with goals at the right time. But if it's Chelsea, extending it so he can cost a fortune, that annoys me.
No, fair enough. Look, I also have fears over the level of perhaps belief in him that Palace fans have. If I can sort of tiptoe my way around that. I've mentioned a few times that if you actually analyse the games, because everyone's like, oh, he scored 6 in whatever it was, 6 in 18 or something like that. That's better than any of our other strikers. You're like, yeah, it was. I think it was 5 actually, and I think 2 of those were in one game against Cardiff. So he scored in 4 games. And if you start to analyse it again, you're like, well, actually, I can remember being really, really frustrated with him in about 3 or 4 other games because he just was completely ineffective. But look, bottom line is he is a goal scorer. He fit in before. If he fits in the same way again, I managed to tuck at least some of the chances we're creating. If we go back to creating lots and lots of chances like we promised in pre-season, and we need someone in there to put them away, then it's fair enough. It's a no-brainer. I just have massive, massive fears that everyone's going to be so emotionally invested in him. We think he's going to come in and just knock the goals in from minute 1. And then he goes the first 7 games without scoring any, and then that's it. He's like, what a waste of money. I can't believe I never wanted him anyway. Oh, Chelsea this, Chelsea that. And it's just all set up in my head for a complete disaster. But let's hope not. We'll only pick out another couple of other rumours. You mentioned Gallagher there, of course, Mike. And if the rumours of Batshuayi are true and come off like we expect, and obviously Gallagher can't join us on loan. Chelsea don't want to sell. He doesn't want to leave permanently, so he would have to go elsewhere. So a bit of a disappointment there because we do need some fresh legs in midfield. But another rumour doing the rounds, I noticed it. There have been some whispers about it, and it cropped up on the BBS earlier on today. And that's Rhian Brewster, who's obviously playing at Liverpool. Extremely highly rated, half a season on loan at Swansea last year, where he scored 1 in 2 and played very, very well. Unproven at Premier League level, but a massive reputation. And all sorts of shock around the game that Liverpool would be prepared to sell, but they're not asking for peanuts. They're asking for 20 million quid. And yeah, if accounts are to be believed, there's an interest from Palace. How do we feel about that? Got to be you first this time, Mike.
I mean, yeah, I don't think a lot of it. I can't see it happening. I think Liverpool haven't strengthened themselves. They don't especially surely need the money. I can't see, unless they get someone in, that they're going to be too keen. So I don't know. I don't take the rumours too much. I actually wanted to bring up the Bright Asai Samuel rumour because that interests me a lot more. But by the time that anyone listens to this, probably all of these rumours are going to be redundant. So I'm not sure. Ryan Bruce would be nice, but I wouldn't have thought that Liverpool are going to be selling him unless they absolutely need to.
Kernes, your thoughts on either Bright Asai Samuel or indeed Ryan Brewster?
I just don't see us getting Brewster for 20 million. I don't see it happening because that is a lot of money, and we spent how much? 16 million on Eze, plus there's add-ons, so it could be 20 million. That's talking around 40 million pounds on 2 players. I don't really expect that to happen. I think Bright Samuels is a more realistic option because, of course, he's running out of contract next summer, and apparently he hasn't signed a new deal at QPR and doesn't want to sign a new deal, according to reports. So maybe Palace can get him on a more team-friendly deal, and you'd assume that QPR don't want to lose him for free. So I think Bright Samuels is more of a realistic option than Brewster.
No, fair arguments. We can't dwell any further on that. I'd like to talk more about transfers, but we've got to move things on. And as I say, keep an eye on the YouTube channel, as Diyar will keep you updated as and when we go. So we'll do something. I was going to talk about outs. The only real rumoured outs at the moment are, I suppose, Sacco, who's moved to Lyon, has died because of injury. And McCarthy, who's moved to Celtic, seems to have died because they haven't got any money. But yeah, Zaha, currently no offers or seemingly expressions of any serious interest. So that's where we are on the outs at the moment, and that's possibly one of the other concerns as well. But I dare say we'll come back to transfers in a bit. Let's have a little bit about chat around off the pitch. So I'll do a quick summary of a few things, and then we'll get into the two discussion points. We'll talk season tickets and talk kits, but we'll keep it short. Diyar, I know you're laughing already. Let's keep it short, yeah, because it's been over an hour already. But we'll get our points across. So just a couple of things. There was whispers earlier on around the kind of investment / takeover angle, and there was a massive misunderstanding on social media, which I found both amusing and frustrating in equal measure, where the actual rumoured interest was from a company that former Premier League chief Richard Scudamore was involved in, and they were called Red Ball Investments, REDBALL. And then all of a sudden, either because of an autocorrect or because of a misunderstanding, lots of people were reporting that Red Bull were trying to buy Palace. And there was all this anger about, we don't want to become Red Bull Crystal Palace or Red Bull London. Oh, it's ridiculous. Parish is selling us down the river, blah, 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 blah. Obviously, none of it was accurate. So, yeah. So, at the moment, as far as anybody's aware, the owners and investors remain the same. Harris and Blitzer aren't out, but there was the interesting point that the Palace badge was removed from their website in terms of a little scrolling sort of thing where it showed all the teams that they had investments in, and the Palace badge disappeared. I haven't gone back and checked if it's reappeared yet or if they've deleted their bios where it says they're directors of Palace yet. But maybe you'll want to do that after listening to me say these words. But we'll move on from that very quick, unless anyone's desperate to say anything.
No, not in the slightest.
Good. So training ground / academy development, we know there's work going on there. I believe that at least on one of the sites, if not both, there was something that concerned me a little bit, that apparently work had stopped. I'd heard that, which is a bit of a worry because I know there's a lot of work going on the academy site. So hopefully nothing dramatic there, that people were pulled off the site. It could be any reason. I work in the industry that deals with construction. There's all sorts of reasons why you might have to pull off site. So I'm hoping nothing dramatic there. But, we're pressing ahead. We're a Cat 1 Academy now. There's lots of stuff being done to develop that. And I think all three of us on this show are Academy founder members, aren't we? So looking forward to getting my Academy founder member face tattoo anytime soon. But we'll see how that development goes. So let's get into it. Let's talk a little bit about season tickets. It's been a fairly unmitigated disaster, hasn't it, Diyar? You and I had some crosswords, didn't we? Winding each other up. I was being a little. What I wasn't doing. You obviously you were accusing me of defending the club, and what I was trying to do was add context to what to decisions. I think in the subsequent days we've seen the impact of some of those decisions that were made, and I can't help but agree in some form with you, even though I don't like agreeing with you at all about anything. So I mean, in particular, I could pick out the credit situation. Totally get why a company would, but in a company, I say a football club in this scenario, would look at the fact they've got to, in a shorter time than ever, administrate a whole host of basic credit arrangements with customers to get them ready for a new season. And it's just, why would you try and spend all the time and energy you've got on that when you've got all this other stuff to do as well, when you could just employ a third-party agency to do it? So it makes logical sense until you actually look at the activity and the impact of that. And the activity and the impact of that is this professional agency do a hard credit search on people who've never had that before for a direct debit. And you've got a whole host of people, probably hundreds, if not thousands of people, being rejected for pay monthly season tickets. So immediately the club's given themselves a problem there. And then there's everything else, Diyar, which I'm sure I'll stop speaking and let you bring up a couple of things.
Yeah, the medical situation where when it was initially released, they asked for medical evidence. I think that was disgusting because no one has to share their personal medical evidence with the club, and it's pretty sensitive to even ask for that. There was that option where maybe I don't want to go next season and it's a pandemic, so why on earth do I have to pay the full price? There should have been a cheaper option like at Leicester, where I think they offered it for around £70, so you keep your seat for next season. But unfortunately, there was nothing like that at Palace. It just seemed like, even with the interest thing, it seemed like the club just thought about themselves and not the people. And we always go on about the club being a community club, being for the people and for everyone around locally. But that wasn't the case. With season tickets, they forgot about that totally. Now people have had them credit checks. It's going to be on their credit history as well, apparently. That's what I've heard.
That's what happens, yeah.
Exactly. So this is the club just thinking about themselves. They didn't think about the people one bit when planning this. And as a result, there's been people with 20-year season tickets that's not going to be able to attend for maybe a very long time because of it costing around £200 to now select your seat. And you can say it's a business, but overall, there's been some fans that's been here through the hard, and the cold days, and now they're going to be out of the game for a very long time.
Well, I mean, I'll let Mike speak in a sec, but just on that part, to a point, I think people have to be a little bit mindful of reacting and straight away and saying, well, that's it, I'm done, I won't be able to attend, so I'm going to lose my seat. There's not a waiting list of hundreds of thousands of people trying to scramble and get in and get your seat. I think lots of people are in a very similar boat. So I think it's difficult to, everyone wants to go to the extreme and the worst case scenario to predict what will happen. But I think the reality will be most people probably won't have an issue. But I think obviously the ideal situation is nobody has an issue. Everybody can if they can't go next season for medical reasons or because they fear the whole COVID outbreak and they're just not comfortable with it, you would hope and believe that the club would be able to accommodate that. And I suppose that's the disappointing part. But there is always another side. There is a club that has lost quite a significant cash flow, has a really short space of time to administrate everything with staff who are also human beings, who have also had issues. The club, look at the things the club did do. They didn't furlough anybody during COVID. They've continued to push and drive donations for the Palace for Life Foundation. They are looking out for their community. They are doing things. But what's happened is they've had to make a series of quick decisions on something that is very hard to get right. I don't think there's a scenario where they could have got everything right. I really don't. So,
I'm going to give people a quick insight into our WhatsApp groups. Diyar quoted the other day to Hambo that he needed to be the people rather than be corporate, which I thought was a really excellent quote. But the two main issues for me is, one, the backtrack on the medical evidence. Needing medical evidence just so you can pay £200 to keep your seat is ridiculous. And obviously they then came out and said, no, we never said that. And then there's a ton of screen prints that prove that is exactly what they said. That's a managerial error or people being misinformed or whatever. to me, that was a big one. The hard credit checks is insane. I have been in situations, I work for companies where, you put a credit check company in first because you don't want to deal with the admin. You're talking about a tiny amount of staff that Palace have got to do this. If you've then got hundreds and hundreds of people that you're going to have to deal with manually, it's going to be a big problem for you, but they're going to end up with it anyway because everyone's been rejected. So I can understand people's frustrations, absolutely. I think also there's probably clubs that have done things better. There's clubs that have definitely done things worse, but it's the comparisons to Arsenal, that kind of stuff. It just doesn't wash because the situation at Palace, like you said, is very different. You've got a much higher percentage of seats to season tickets than you would at Arsenal. And as you say, there's not an enormous list of people waiting to nick your seat. And I think maybe if Palace had been a bit more upfront and said nobody's going to lose their seat this season, I think that probably would have placated it.
Yeah.
But they've got their own problems. It's just, I think communication, as has been the case before, is the major problem.
I think going back to the discussion Diyar and I had, and I've called it a discussion, the row, the argument, if we'd been in the same room, we'd have thrown things at each other. Because Diyar used the phrase money grabbing. And I was trying to point out, as I like to do, that it's not money grabbing. It's about cash flow, because they're not keeping anyone's money. You're still, if you pay for a season ticket up front, I mean, what I would have accepted is it's like giving the club an interest-free loan, and that's out of order, particularly when they're charging interest the other way. But I am. I'm a corporate guy. I'm a manager.
See, you're not thinking about the people. You're not thinking about the people.
Yeah, you and the people. You'll soon leave the people behind when you're rich and famous from your stupid YouTube antics.
No,
actually, can I just say, we really wanted to do a show called Diyar Does.
Did we?
On YouTube. Yeah, we did. You didn't. You've been resisting. But Mikey and I desperately wanted to get Diyar to carry out various activities. And the first one, it's a shame now, because if you'd done it, you would have been able to see Kayla before she passed on. But we were going to take Diyar down to Eagle Heights. We were going to get him to play with an eagle. And then we were going to get him to spend some time running around a field with some alpacas. And we just think that would be entertaining. But and the context of that is Diyar is scared of every single animal. When we did the marathon walk, you were scared of all insects, all animals. There was a tiny dog which you kept hiding behind my legs like a tiny child, which amused me no end. But then we were walking through Richmond Park, and you suddenly saw the deer, and it was like you didn't know where to go because they were all around you. And I just think that's a really entertaining thing, and it'd be a very popular YouTube.
I just don't play around with animals. I just don't, I'm a human, they're animals, we've got our own divide there. There's barriers to this. Some people like animals, but me, I'm not a fan, it's a free world that we live in.
Well, let me know. I think it would be how Diyar gets his fame and fortune. So let me know if you'd like to see us film some episodes.
We've got a lot of nudges from our producer to hurry up, and somehow we're onto alpacas. It's excellent.
Absolutely right. You get very nervous about the timing. Because
exactly, I love it.
Mike, you care a lot, and obviously you can always tell my reaction when you start getting shifty about timing is I go onto tangents and I start to talk to you about it in some meta way. Are you enjoying that?
Yeah, fair enough.
I've been doing it to you for like 2 years. You must have noticed.
I have, and I suppose it is the season preview. It's going to overrun a bit, isn't it?
Exactly. So and look, Sam hasn't got anything else to do with her life.
Sam's hungover. It's the reason she doesn't want to edit. That's the main issue. I'm going to take some blame for that, admittedly.
Yeah, I believe it was your fault. Let's have a quick word about the kits, because we're going to skip a couple of topics, and what we've got left won't take too long as well, so it won't be too dramatic. So I just want to, I suppose I'm going to say something, and I suspect you all feel the same, but let's see. Didn't like the kits at first, but now they're fine.
Yes.
Mike?
No, they still look like Lego characters when the people are wearing them. I'm not having it. So when I watched the highlights of the women's the opening game against Charlton, and then Morgan the keeper unfortunately made a horrendous error for Charlton to go 1-0 up, and it just made it more comical with the kits. I don't know why. They just look like little drawings that have been drawn on. I don't know. I won't be buying one until they go down to 15 quid or whatever.
No. Fair enough. Well, we nearly got full agreement on that. So look, we covered the questions that some of the questions that we got in earlier on throughout the course of the show, which was good. So no need to worry about that. So again, to topic 5, which I've called in the show doc Mystic Kernaz, which is a reference to the lottery predictor Mystic Meg. Do you remember Mystic Meg?
I've never heard of Mystic Meg.
No, you probably weren't born, were you? But it's a reference to that, really. So really, just split it into some quick chat, 5 minutes or so, about. First of all, what do we think of Palace's season ahead? Where do you think we'll finish? What are the key factors? We talked about whether Roy might last the season. So, from you first of all, Diyar, where are we going to finish, and what do you think are the biggest variables in that?
So yeah, I've got my notes down here. Finish 12th, and I think Eze and Wilf's performance is going to be one of the key factors, and also our defense is going to be as solid as it was last season for the majority of the season, anyways. And is Roy going to last the season? I think so. I think he's going to be here.
And then hand over to the rumoured incoming manager at the end. So that'd be interesting. So that's your prediction. How about yourself, Mike, for Palace? What are you expecting?
Trying to think who's going to finish below us. I think it's finally time for Brighton's 15 minutes of fame to bugger off. I can't see them lasting again unless they do some serious work. Adam Lallana's not going to fix it for them. Neither's fucking Potterball. Sorry, I swore. Sorry.
First one.
And then West Brom and perhaps Fulham. So I'm going to go 17th. I think we're going to struggle. And I think it's going to be totally dependent on how we play down the flanks in midfield, to be honest. And, the signs are good from pre-season, but one injury might tank that because we're still a bit light. So, I might change that if there's a couple more signs, particularly Samuel's coming. But for now, I think we're going to struggle. I do think we're going to stay up there.
Yeah, I think I agree with that, with things as they are. I mean, obviously, I do expect us to make a couple of signings, and I also would expect, if we're in trouble, for us to dig in January. So I think I'm probably going to revise my early expectation of us to go down. And you talk about teams that would finish below us, Mike. I mean, West Ham look like they're in pieces at the moment in such an amusing and entertaining way. So that you got to fear for their safety, not fear for their safety, revel in their inability to stay up, really. So expect them to really struggle. I've got to say probably Fulham and Villa for me will also struggle, and then it's really just well you can not think so, but
West Brom and Brighton, I think, and West Ham for me.
No, I would say I think West Brom will finish above West Brom as well. Brighton, I've got mixed feelings about. I've just got the fear for this coming season about Brighton. I don't know why. I'm absolutely convinced we're going to lose our first game at home to them. Not our first game at home, but our. Do you see what I mean? Like we're going to lose our game at home to them. Yeah. So there we go. So I mean, I'm predicting a 15th place finish by the end of the season, but I think it will be a rocky road. And I think I'm going to say our first 10 games. I think. I'll be surprised if we're averaging more than a point a game, but happily so. How things are now, if we get a couple of forwards in, I can see that being maybe 1.5 points a game. So there we are. So how do we feel about the Premier League as a whole? We've talked about relegation in our answers, but I mean, Diyar, to you again.
I think Man City are going to win it this year. They're going to return to their peak form. If their defenders stay fit, I think that's the biggest downfall for Man City. Top 4, Liverpool, Arsenal and That's my top 4. For Europa League, Everton and Tottenham.
There's your beloved Spurs. Okay.
Yeah, is that what are you on? Oh. Anyways, Everton and Tottenham, top 6. And then, as I said, West Ham, Brighton and West Brom getting relegated. Because I feel like Fulham, yes, they did get relegated last time around, but they're more sensible with their approach this season. I've read something about them, and they're not going out and buying all types of players like they did last time around, and they're looking to build within the squad. So I feel like that will help them.
How about you, Mike? Your Premier League predictions?
I don't know what to expect, really. I can see Arsenal doing better than they. I mean, fair enough, they actually won some silverware, but I can see them doing well. Certainly better than the expectations for last season. Leeds worry me. They've invested. They look strong. I feel like there's going to be a lot of teams beating each other, and I don't think there's going to be quite such a hoovering up of points from the top teams as usual. I do think the Premier League is going to be very strong. Plus the fact you don't have pressure from the fans. So teams that are on a losing run, that their fans are going to give them hassle, like West Ham, maybe have a lifeline because of the fact that they can play without that pressure. So I think we're going to see some weird old results. I'm not sure how that benefits or does bad for Palace. You can imagine that our away fans not being there is going to be a massive hindrance. But I'm sure there's other teams in similar situations. But the main thing I want to see is Sheffield United not to do so bloody well as they did last year.
Yeah, absolutely. You heard it here first, everyone. During the course of the Premier League next year, Mike is predicting that a lot of teams will beat each other. That's Mike.
Sorry, just to explain that, as in there'll be 3 points at home and then a loss away.
So I'm just checking my notes to see if I got anything as incisive as that. Hold on a sec. No, I didn't. No.
Yeah.
There we go. Well, that's what he's here for.
Exclusive.
Sorry, just. My predictions: Liverpool to win the league, Manchester United to finish second, Manchester City to finish third. Oh dear. Then what do I think?
Arsenal.
I could see Spurs finishing above Arsenal. So I'd go Spurs fourth, Arsenal fifth. And I think you're right about Everton. Everton in sixth, because I think you look at the signings they're making and the manager that they've got. I mean, every time they've tried it over the last few years, it's been a disaster. So they've got to get it right once. And if they get it right next season with those players, sixth, they've got to be pushing top six, haven't they? So
yeah.
There we go. Those are my predictions. And I hate to say it, but I just think Man United, with their signings, are going very much in the right direction. And I hate them so much, and I hope it doesn't happen. So there's our predictions. Let's see how we get on.
If you want more similar discussion, listen to Talk Sport for 23 and a half hours of the 24 hours a day.
Absolutely right. But look, and the final topic of the day is a very quick preview of the preview. So obviously the preview team, Terence, Sam and Albert, will be returning to preview the Southampton game within the next couple of days as of the time of this recording. Hopefully our content will be out before then, so otherwise it'll be weird. But so we're just going to do a quick preview. And I don't mean we're going to preview what they think, because essentially it'd be previewing Sam and Terence making Watford-based jokes at Albert getting increasingly drunk on gin and making ridiculous comments. And then Sam going on and moaning about something for quite a long period of time. I think that's generally speaking what we'd be previewing. That's a little test to see if they watch/listen to this. I'm joking, guys. I'm joking. It's good. So, what do you think in terms of that opening lineup? Let's run through it, Diyar.
Jeez.
In goal, Guaita.
Wardy.
Right back. Yeah.
Left back, Mitchell. Centre back. Who's fit? I don't know.
Dan and Koyate?
Yeah, I guess so. But if Cahill, is anyone else going to be fit? No, you don't think
Kelly
so? Yeah.
Kelly didn't look too fit. He played in the under-23s today. Looked a little off the pace, if I'm being blunt.
Right.
Yeah, I think it'll be them too. And in midfield, hopefully, Gyro starts alongside. I don't mind James McArthur or Luca, one of them two, but I just want Gyro to start. And on the right-hand side, I think it'll be Andros. Left-hand side, I think it'll be Eze if he is fit. Not too sure yet. We'll probably find out in a couple of days. And up front will be Wilfried Zaha and Jordan Ayew.
See, I'm going to be a bit more pessimistic, and I'm going to say McCarthy and MacArthur with Townsend and Schlupp on the left, and then Ayew and Zaha up front.
I've got to say, my not that I want this, but my prediction of the change. So I do think Diyar's right in terms of the midfield, but I expect it to be MacArthur and Riedewald because I don't think Luca's fit yet. That's the only reason. I think Luca would probably come in for Riedewald if that wasn't the case, rather than MacArthur, which I prefer. But I think Eze will start on the bench. Even if he's fit, I just think that will happen. And I think it'll be Schlupp that comes into the team. Whether or not he starts on the left or Wilfried Zaha starts on the left and he starts up front. We've seen both scenarios in pre-season. I think that's how we'll start the season. So that's everything in terms of our predictions there. So let's get a scoreline, we reckon, from each. Mike, I'm going to start with you because Diyar gets to say his first throughout the entire of this show. But
so I posted earlier a news that Danny Ings is possibly not fit, which then said in the article that he is fit. So if they've got him fit, and Trippier, I think they're going to be a tough proposition. And I've just seen some people tweeting about Southampton trying to make this sort of fake rivalry between us after Ward-Prowse being a bell end last season. Unfortunately, I think it's going to be a really tough game, and I can see us losing 1-0.
I'll go with 1-0. 1-0. I just don't want us to lose, but I'm not really confident that we'll win because even in pre-season we were undefeated. You saw the cracks in the Brøndby game. You really did, and we don't have a fully fit squad, so hopefully we'll get a point out of the game.
I think personally they found it a little bit too easy to play us of late, particularly with Ward-Prowse on Wilf. Just follow him about, marking him out the game, getting him angry and frustrated. I think Wilf changing positions to being able to roam the pitch will prevent that from happening. So that's a positive. However, I agree with you, Diyar, in the signs that were worrying in the Brøndby game. I don't think we're quite firing on all cylinders starting the season. My hope is that Southampton aren't, but I suspect it will be an agonising 2-1 defeat. But I do think we'll get on the score sheet. Hope I'm wrong, but fairly pessimistic, that, isn't it? But there we are.
Yeah.
So that's it. That's it from us. Obviously, thank you very much for joining us today. It is great to be back with you. Thanks for listening and or watching in particular. My appreciation to Mike and to Diyar. Thanks, guys. Love seeing your faces.
Thank you.
Thank you very much to producer Sam for stepping in after we had to abandon our first attempt to record this at the weekend. But we're okay. We did it. It's great. So don't forget to follow us on all forms of social media. I suppose, a bit of give appreciation. I forgot to shout them out earlier on to our sponsor, Pitch Sport Football. If you Google Pitch Sport Football, you can download their app on there. It should be ready for the new season with some updates. More about that throughout the course of the season. Do subscribe on YouTube and give us your 5-star ratings on podcast apps. And obviously, Preview Team will be back with you. They're recording Thursday night as we record this, so that'd be Thursday the 10th, I guess.
They're recording.
So it should... Yeah, they're recording. But so podcast should be with you on Friday the 11th onwards, maybe, potentially. And we'll be back to review the Southampton game on Sunday in video and audio form. Until then, see you later.